Good morning, one and all, and welcome all of you to the last lecture on why the novel matters. In the previous lecture, we looked at how Lawrence distinguishes between the theories of priest, philosopher, and scientists. And in this context, he explains that all these books on poetry, philosophy, and science affects the different consciousness or aspects of man. Whereas the novel, being the bright book of life, is supreme than all these books, which are merely tremulations in the ether. But a novel understands the man in its whole and therefore is superior than these books. And that is why he says he is a novelist. Because unlike science, philosophy, and other books, they cater to bits and pieces of man, but novel makes the whole man tremble. At the end of the previous lecture, I had discussed how Lawrence declares that he does not care for absolutes, absolute right and wrong. He argues that the change is the only constant, and all things flow and change. Yet in all this change, Lawrence maintains integrity or honesty. He says, "In all this change, I maintain a certain integrity. But woe betide me if I try to put a finger on it. If I say of myself, I am this, I am that, then if I stick to it, I turn into a stupid fixed thing like a lamppost. I shall never know wherein lies my integrity, my individuality, my me." Lawrence maintains the integrity in the inconsistencies of his behavior. He does not like his behavior to be constant. He wants to change and evolve. He does not want to stay fixed like a lamppost or follow a set pattern of living and lifestyle. He says that if he tries to fix himself according to a premeditated idea or pattern, he will lose his integrity, his individuality, his me. So he does not want to accustom himself to a set idea or pattern. Otherwise, he will lose his integrity, his honesty, his individuality, and his me. Lawrence discusses that ego is the central obstacle in way of change. He finds it useless because ego makes him imagine ideas about himself. He says it is useless to talk about my ego. That only means that I have made up an idea of myself, and that I am trying to cut myself out to pattern. But you can't clip bits of your living body to trim it down to your idea. He talks that his ego which makes him conjure up ideal notions or ideas or patterns for himself. And he must adapt himself to those ideas and patterns. Lawrence considers ego to be useless because he gives an example. He says, even if we try to fit ourselves into an ideal pattern of ourselves, it would be just like cutting a piece of cloth and stitching it to fit ourselves. But just like with changing times, fashions change, so also with changing times, our body also changes. Our ideas about ourselves keeps on changing. So we cannot clip bits of our living body and trim it down to fit the perfect idea that we have of ourselves in our mind. So Lawrence calls us to learn from the novel. He says, Let us learn from the novel. In the novel, the characters can do nothing but live. If they keep on being good according to pattern, or bad according to pattern, or even volatile according to pattern, they cease to live, and the novel falls dead. Lawrence calls novel as the bright book of life. It teaches a man to live. Novel serves as a guide for human being, and he asks us to learn from the novel as the characters in the novel does not follow a fixed pattern, and if they did, they would cease to live. Similarly, men must learn to live or we are nothing. Lawrence says that living cannot be described or put under a definition. We do not know or we cannot ascribe a fixed meaning to the word living, just as the word being, which cannot be described. And man, in order to form a meaning of life, goes in search after it and cuts out a pattern of ideal life. Lawrence gives us few examples. He says that man attributes or assigns the meaning of life to different things. Sometimes man goes into desert to seek God, or cash, or wine, woman, water, etc. The needs of a man keeps changing and shifting. So therefore we must live or learn from the novel, because if a novel or if the characters try to follow a certain pattern, they will cease to live. And through all this wild chase for the meaning of life, Lawrence says that only a novel can be our true guide. To quote the lines of Lawrence from his essay, he says, "What then? Turn truly, honorably to the novel, and see wherein you are man alive, and wherein you are dead man in life. To be alive, to be man alive, to be whole man alive, that is the point. And at its best, the novel and the novel supremely can help you." So the point he makes over here is that to be alive, to be man alive, and to be a whole man alive, that is the point of living. And only a novel can help us in achieving that goal. So a novel stands supreme as it gives us an understanding of the whole of man, whether we are man alive or we are dead man in life. In order to know whether we are living, whether we are man alive, or whether we are dead man in life, we can only know it by reading a novel. In the novel, you can see when a man goes dead or a woman goes inert, and we can understand or develop an instinct for life. He says that in life there is right and wrong, good and bad, and right and wrong is an instinct, but an instinct of the whole consciousness in a man, bodily, mental, spiritual at once. And only in the novel are all things given full play. We realize that life itself and not inert safety is the reason for living. Lawrence explains that the only thing that is important in life is to live in wholeness and not in security of some particular consciousness. And only a novel fully displays the whole consciousness of living, not only bodily but mentally as well as spiritually. Because Only a novel affects the whole man alive, the whole consciousness in a man alive, which is mind, body, and soul. And that is why the novel matters. We have come to the end of the lecture on why the novel matters. I will request and I hope that all of you will read the chapter or the essay once again and go through the video lecture along with it for better understanding. Thank you.